Chapter 2942. Elders was face darkened. No. Miss Yi, why don't you go to the Saintess Yard to hide? I don't believe that those people from the Palace of Darkness would dare to barge into our Miao tribe. Secluded Darkness Palace even dared to provoke the Imperial Palace? Why would they be afraid of a Miao tribe? Yi Qing Luo shook her head. Their target is me. Could it be, just because you noticed that the guards of the Palace of Darkness are actually all corpses? The secret of being able to infect evil energy? The elder on the right clenched his fists angrily. Because of the puppets from the Palace of Darkness and the infected Miao guards. The two judging elders had been extremely dissatisfied with the Palace of Darkness for a long time. Yi Qing Luo smiled but didn't reply. The reason why the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was against her. Even she herself didn't know. Perhaps the dark forces had an irreconcilable grudge against her. Or it could be that the Nether Palace wanted to deal with DMO Xian and she was DMO Xian's woman. Or perhaps, there were many possibilities. However, Abyss Palace's true goal was to wait until he would only know when the person behind the scenes of the Gloomy Palace appeared. Why is it suddenly so noisy? What happened? Yan Xiaoyi and the rest walked out of their rooms. Yi Qing Luo looked at those people who were walking over. Their hair was not messy. His clothes were neat and tidy without any creases. However, these clothes were the same clothes which Yi Qing Luo wore not long ago when she came to the courtyard to discuss with them about leaving the Miao tribe. That was to say, she sent her brothers back to their rooms to rest. None of them could rest in peace. They were all worried about her. Yi Qing Luo's heart warmed. Qing Luo, why are there so many torches outside? What kind of Miao ritual is this? Yan Xiaoyi looked at the sky that was dyed red, and then looked outside the perimeter wall, at the red glow that enveloped everything. Kitty seems to have smelled something weird. Stinks. Kitty Li wrinkled her nose and covered it with her hand. Zhou Mo tightened his arms around her shoulders and frowned as he looked at the sky through the high walls. The expression on his face was no longer as frivolous as before. Instead, there was a hint of solemnity. What's going on? Such a big thing happened in the Miao tribe and I didn't receive any news? As Taozi spoke, she took out the important information that Bapti had given her from her bosom and kept rummaging through it. But no matter how he searched, he could not find a single piece of information related to the Miao tribe. Gui Wu, who was walking at the back, had a solemn and cold expression on his face as he exchanged glances with Zhou Mo. Although Gui Wu did not say anything, his expression had already revealed the seriousness of the matter. Both he and Zhou Mo had grim expressions on their faces. After some time, Gui Wu slowly shifted his line of sight onto Yi Qing Luo, as he opened his mouth coldly, a very strong aura. Yeah. Yi Qing Luo naturally sensed the majestic overbearing aura outside the Miao tribe. Where's the formidable opponent? I'm afraid it's going to be difficult to deal with. Miss Yi, I think you should follow me to the back of the mountain. Even if there are people guarding the back mountain, we can still fight our way out with our strength. Elder Zui immediately voiced out his opinion after hearing their words. To have such a strong presence, she obviously came prepared, and will definitely not give me a chance to leave. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as the cold glint reflected out was a little biting cold. Chapter 2943. The elders on the left and right looked at each other and their faces turned pale. Miss Yi, you mean, there is a spy from the Palace of Darkness in the Miao tribe? Yi Qing Luo smiled without saying a word. But this smile also tacitly agreed with their guesses. Indeed, if it wasn't for an insider. Why would the people of the Dark Secluded Palace choose this time to lead the Dark Secluded Palace to surround the Miao tribe? The new Saintess was not present. The former Saintess wasn't here either. The two pillars of support were gone. The people of Gloomy Palace easily incited the people of the Miao tribe. At that time, she would not only have to deal with the people from the Palace of Darkness. He still had to split himself to guard against the Miao tribesmen. The right elder clenched his fists and was filled with hatred. My Miao tribe has been in the Miao tribe's territory for generations. We rarely appear in other parts of the continent and make enemies with others. I originally thought that this would ensure the simplicity of our Miao tribe's people. I didn't expect. There is no limit to human greed. Yi Qing Luo opened her mouth calmly. There are two sides to everything. You thought that by restricting the Miao clansmen from leaving the Miao clan, you would be able to maintain their original intentions, but because the people they interacted with were all Miao clansmen, they don't know the loathing of the outside world, so it's easier for them to listen to other people's slanderous words, or perhaps the temptation given. When the left and right judging elders heard Yi Qing Luo's words, They seemed to have suffered a blow as they staggered a few steps backwards. We must find the mole behind all of this. Let him know the consequences of betraying the Miao tribe. The right elder's voice was filled with deep sorrow and regret. In order to preserve the simplicity of the people, they specially made this suggestion. Unexpectedly, it became an opportunity for the Palace of Gloomy Darkness to make use of. The traitor who betrayed the Miao tribe and sent information to the Palace of Darkness. He would not let them off easily. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes were frivolous as her face still had that lazy expression. Leave this courtyard first in case it implicates the both of you. Yiqing Luo didn't really like these two judging elders. But he didn't hate it either. At least compared to those sanctimonious Miao elders. At least they were more sincere towards the Miao tribe. The right judge elder's face turned cold. You are the Miao tribe's guest and also the saint's friend. The Palace of Secluded Darkness is looking for the Miao tribe in such a blatant manner. If I am afraid that I will be implicated and ignore you, then I am not fit to be the judge elder. Yes. What justice and fairness are we talking about? Elders Wu clenched his fists and said with righteous indignation, it's you who allowed the Miao tribe to find a saintess who can truly be the saintess. You are the benefactor of the Miao tribe. Their gazes were firm and serious. Yiqing Luo looked at them for some time and laughed. I know your sincerity. Right judge elder if you really want to. Yiqing Luo. Come out for this elder. Suddenly, a burst of angry curses came from outside the courtyard. Then the gate of the courtyard was split open by a palm strike. Instantly wood splinters flew everywhere. A skinny figure dashed into the room. His mouth was still cursing and swearing. Yiqing Luo, you jinx. Hurry up and roll out for this elder. Did he think that by hiding here he could escape from the trouble he had caused? Come out now. Old 5. When the elder on the right saw who it was, he yelled, What are you yelling about? Shut up. The person who came, wasn't it that hot-tempered fifth elder Miao? Chapter 2944. Immediately, fifth elder Miao stared furiously at Yiqing Luo. Elder right, surely you're not thinking of shielding this jinx, right? What jinx? Don't talk nonsense. The right elder's face darkened. Fifth elder Miao pointed at the flames outside the door. He gritted his teeth and cursed, You call this nonsense? The Palace of Gloomy Darkness is already at our doorstep. The right judge furrowed his white eyebrows. When fifth elder Miao saw that he did not speak, he felt that he was in the right. On top of that, fifth elder Miao had already exposed himself in the underground tunnel. He was colluding with Miao Rongrong and had the intention of helping Miao Rongrong get the position. Miao Yi had already become a holy maiden. The things that he had done would definitely be told to Miao Yi by Yiqing Luo in revenge. At that time, it would be difficult for him to keep his position as an elder. Fifth elder Miao wouldn't think that losing his position as an elder was a mistake caused by his improper thoughts. Instead he blamed everything on Yiqing Luo. He originally had a belly full of anger and unhappiness towards Yiqing Luo. At this moment he felt even more. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo, his and Miao Rongrong's plan wouldn't have failed. After Miao Rongrong became an elder, then he would be the hero. He was Miao Rongrong's confidant. But now, everything was disrupted. He would even suffer from Miao Yi and Yiqing Luo's revenge. The more he thought about it, the deeper the hatred in the fifth elder's heart grew. The deeper it was, the more he wanted to destroy Yiqing Luo. If Yiqing Luo knew about the things that fifth elder Miao's mind was filled with, they would definitely look at him with disdain. She really did not have the time to complain to Miao Yi. She was not in the mood to go against elder Miao Wu. For a short-sighted and hot-tempered person like elder Miao Wu, it was only a matter of time before he suffered a loss. There was no need for her to do it herself. He could only say that elder Miao Wu thought too highly of him. No one knew that in Yiqing Luo's eyes, fifth elder Miao was not even comparable to an ant. He was not worthy of her attention at all. Fifth elder Miao was unaware of this as he shouted in rage. Ever since this woman came to the Miao tribe, there have been various incidents happening in the Miao tribe. Our Miao tribe has never had a peaceful day. How was she not a jinx? Misfortune followed him wherever he went. If she hadn't become enemies with the emissary of the Palace of Darkness during the Saintess selection ceremony. If she had not forced the second palace master of the Palace of Darkness to kill those useless people, the guards of the Miao tribe would not have been infected. If she didn't insist on Miao Yi becoming the Saintess and offend the Palace of Darkness, the people from the Palace of Darkness wouldn't have surrounded the Miao tribe at this time. Fifth elder Miao spat out a series of incriminating evidence. Saying that, he panted heavily as the green veins on his forehead popped out. as he pointed at Yiqing Luo in a towering rage. "This woman is a demoness. He is the jinx of the Miao tribe." Elder Zhua, who had been silent all this while, said sternly, "Old Five, I thought you were just a little hot-tempered. I didn't expect you to be so narrow-minded. In your eyes, do you only see these superficial things? You keep saying that the Palace of Darkness had been targeting the Miao tribe time and time again because of Miss Yi. Then have you ever thought that on such an important day for our Miao tribe, Palace of Darkness totally disregarded our Miao tribe's reputation and kept creating trouble? What do they treat our Miao tribe as?" Chapter 2945. Right Judge Elder sneered as he spoke, as though he was ridiculing Fifth Elder Miao's ignorance. That disdainful gaze swept past Fifth Elder Miao as he continued, "If it wasn't for Miss Yi, those guards from Secluded Palace would not only be infected by those few Miao guards. If it wasn't for Miss Yi, those infected guards would all turn into puppets. By then, have you thought about what kind of state our Miao tribe would be in?" Left Judge Elder also continued, "Old Five, don't think that we don't know what happened in the underground tunnel and push all the blame onto Miss Yi. If it wasn't for Miao Rongrong's evil intentions, collaborating with Secluded Palace, we wouldn't have ended up in such a state. If Secluded Palace wants to make a fuss, they need to see if we old bones allow it or not." Right and left Judge Elders spoke one after another as their imposing manner surged. Every word and sentence forced Fifth Elder Miao to take a few steps back. Fifth Elder Miao's face flushed red as his fingers trembled as he pointed at this and that with an annoyed look. Yiqing Luo, who was blocked behind by the left and right elders, listened to the two elders arguing for her, looking at the two of them standing in front of her, that tall and straight back view. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed past a faint sense of warmth. Most of the time, respect and help were mutual. Right and left Judge Elders treated her well. She would naturally remember this kindness. The two of them at this moment still stood in front of her without any hesitation, speaking up for her. That was enough for Yiqing Luo to remember them. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled slightly as she was about to push the two of them aside to reply. But this smile fell into Fifth Elder Miao's eyes. Fifth Elder Miao only felt that Yiqing Luo was ridiculing him, showing off that she had the help of the two elders. Immediately, Elder Miao felt as if there was a ball of anger in his head. It surged up and devoured all his rationality. "The two of you have made up your mind to speak up for this jinx, haven't you? Can I take it that you're in cahoots? Yiqing Luo, you want to invade Miao tribe? Trying to make use of Miao Yi's trust towards you, to ally with old left and right, to let you invade Miao tribe legitimately, right?" He was howling as his eyes turned red, and without any explanation, he went up to pull Yiqing Luo. "You leave with this elder. As long as we hand over a jinx like you, my Miao tribe will have peace." Yiqing Luo would never let Fifth Elder Miao bump into her. Fifth Elder Miao's hand hadn't even come close. Yiqing Luo had already moved her feet, avoiding Fifth Elder Miao's outstretched hand. Coincidentally, the left and right judges' elders quickly grabbed onto Fifth Elder Miao. Fifth Elder Miao was so infuriated that he kept on struggling as he scolded, "Yiqing Luo, you slut. If you really treat Miao Yi as your friend, then for Miao Yi's sake, don't implicate my Miao tribe. You should just surrender yourself to us." "Heh." Yiqing Luo's lips twitched slightly as she gave a scornful smile. A pair of long and narrow eyes curved into a faint, seductive arc. "Fifth Elder Miao, if I say you're stupid, you really are." The girl's voice was filled with disdain and ridicule. Fifth Elder Miao's face flushed red from the provocation. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws, wanting to pounce forward and forcefully attack. However, he was quickly held down by the elders on the left and right. Chapter 2946. Yiqing Luo's words left her mouth. Fifth Elder Miao, who was making a racket, instantly shut his mouth. The other two judging elders also looked towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo met their gazes as she smiled calmly. "The answer is no. From the moment Secluded Palace set their eyes on Miao tribe, it is impossible for Miao tribe to remain unscathed." When Yiqing Luo's last sentence left her mouth, the few elders' faces turned ghastly pale at this instance. Especially Fifth Elder Miao, his face was pale and ugly as it kept on twisting. His ruthless eyes shone with a dim luster as he racked his brains to think of how to rebuke Yiqing Luo's words. Yiqing Luo didn't even take a look at Fifth Elder Miao as she walked straight towards the courtyard's entrance. "Demoness, you're trying to escape." Fifth Elder Miao seemed to have found a breakthrough as he screamed in a sharp, tearing voice. He struggled as he pushed the left and right judging elders. "The both of you are that demoness accomplices. The left and right judging elders restrained fifth elder Miao as they watched him struggling endlessly, cursing and swearing. The two of them looked at each other. This fifth elder Miao's every word was directed at Yiqing Luo. And he kept on leading the tempo, trying to make them hand Yiqing Luo over to secluded palace. Could it be? Miao tribe's traitor, secluded palace's spy, was fifth elder Miao? This thought made the left and right judging elders' faces sunk. The gaze which they shot towards fifth elder Miao was filled with judgment. Whereas at this moment Yiqing Luo and the rest had already walked out of the courtyard as they rushed towards the direction of Miao tribe's entrance. Miao tribe's surroundings were brightly lit. The burning torches swayed as it drew out a long silhouette. There wasn't a single person around. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she sneered as she sized up the surroundings. It looked like all the Miao tribesmen had already rushed to the entrance of Miao tribe. He had only sent Elder Miao Wu alone to the courtyard where she was staying to invite her? This was a good idea. Fifth Elder Miao was a hot-tempered person. Whereas for Yiqing Luo, after hearing that Miao tribe was surrounded, she was agitated by Fifth Elder Miao's nasty words. She made a move on Fifth Elder Miao. Then he ran away with his brothers. This also confirmed that Yiqing Luo had a guilty conscience and didn't dare to face the truth of the Palace of Seclusion. In this way the Miao tribesmen would also feel that secluded palace was targeting Yiqing Luo and they, the Miao tribesmen, were innocent victims. Secluded Darkness Palace could swallow up the Miao tribe legitimately and also push the blame to Yiqing Luo, thus alienating the relationship between the Miao tribe and Yiqing Luo. As for Yiqing Luo and the Sacred Maiden's intimate relationship. As a result, the people of the Miao tribe would no longer have the respect and faith they once had for the saintess. Instead they would be filled with resentment. The people from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness have brains. Gui Wu, who was usually silent, also opened his mouth. It was obvious that he had seen through the plans of the Palace of Darkness. Yan Xiaoyi and Kitty Li blinked their eyes, not really understanding the meaning behind Gui Wu's words. However, their men just patted their heads and smiled mysteriously. Looks like tonight is going to be a little tricky. Yiqing Luo didn't intentionally explain as her lips curled into a smile. Master Gui Wu, you will help, right? Gui Wu lifted his eyelids as he squinted at Yiqing Luo but didn't say a word. Not rebutting meant that he had tacitly agreed. Yiqing Luo suddenly felt that she had a backer now. Gui Wu and Zhou Mo had always been a mysterious existence. Yiqing Luo couldn't tell how their abilities were. But one thing was for sure. Chapter 2947. As long as she had nothing to worry about, she could give it her all. The group hurried to the entrance of the Miao tribe. The entrance of the Miao tribe was now surrounded by Miao tribesmen. Standing right in front of the Miao tribesmen were Great Elder Miao and the rest. On seeing Yiqing Luo and the rest silhouettes, Great Elder Miao immediately went up to them. Miss Yi, you all? Why are you all? His gaze went past Yiqing Luo and the rest, looking behind them. Look for Fifth Elder Miao? Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly. She didn't have any good impression of this hypocrite. Although Grand Elder Miao's face put on a worried expression, trying to show that he didn't wish for Yiqing Luo and the others to rush over to send themselves to death. That's right. I didn't ask Old Fifth to inform you, to ask you. Great Elder Miao said ambiguously on purpose. Based on what he said, it sounded like he had arranged for Elder Miao Wu to go to the courtyard to inform her so that she could seize the opportunity to escape. It was as if he was thinking of her wholeheartedly. Looking at Grand Elder Miao's hypocritical worried face, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but tugged her lips as she sneered. Let him forcefully bring me over to dedicate himself to your Miao tribe till my death? Great Elder Miao's expression stiffened and he hurriedly said, How? What happens to your Elder Miao has nothing to do with me. Yiqing Luo directly interrupted Grand Elder Miao's words. Since the Palace of Darkness's people specifically pointed out my name to look for me, then I'll come over to take a look at what tricks the Palace of Darkness is trying to play. His sonorous and forceful words deterred the surrounding noises of people pointing at him. Yiqing Luo's brows were frivolous as her charming eyes stared straight ahead, raising the torch up high, surrounding the Miao tribe, those people from secluded palace. At a glance there were at least 1,000 people. They were all disciples wearing the uniform of the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing Luo's gaze finally fell onto the most conspicuous spot among the Palace of Darkness's disciples. It was a huge beast comparable to a dinosaur. It looked ugly and ferocious and it was impossible to tell what kind of magical beast it was. They had almost blocked the path to the Miao tribe. On the body of the magical beast, standing in front of them was a woman in a long white dress, with an ethereal aura. The woman was young and beautiful, but there was an unconcealable flirtatiousness between her brows. There was a clear sense of incongruity with his temperament and age. At this moment, the woman was staring at Yiqing Luo with a venomous look. Beside the woman was a woman dressed in the attire of the Palace of Darkness. Her face was also filled with hatred, and there was an arrogant and proud smile in her eyes. After looking at the faces of the two women, Yiqing Luo scoffed in disdain. These two people were not strangers. It was Plum, who had been humiliated under Yiqing Luo's hands, and the so-called envoy from secluded palace, Yan Zhenfei. These two people had forgotten the pain after the scar had healed. Here to stir up trouble again? Yiqing Luo was staring intently at that huge magical beast as she was still considering if her Shiju's tiny body was able to take on that dinosaur-like magical beast's devastation. Suddenly, a cautious and tentative voice rang in her ears. Miss Yi? Yiqing Luo turned back and met with Fourth Elder Miao's slightly flustered expression. Chapter 2948. Hearing this, First Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao immediately shifted their gazes over. Fourth Elder Miao clenched his fists tightly, his face filled with caution. Ever since the Saintess accepted the inheritance yesterday, she has not shown herself. If it was in the past, we wouldn't have said anything if she didn't show herself, but now, after all, she is the holy lady of the Miao tribe and the future tribe leader of the Miao tribe. She must bear this responsibility. After Fourth Elder Miao finished his words, he carefully took a look at Yiqing Luo's expression. Seeing Yiqing Luo's calm expression, he continued, If Miss Yi knows where Sacred Maiden is, you must tell us. At least at this time, with Saintess present, she can appease the hearts of the Miao tribe. My motive for coming to the Miao tribe is very simple, and I believe that previously, Miao Rongrong should have mentioned it to you. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she met Fourth Elder Miao's eyes calmly. I need the strongest person in the Miao tribe to do something for me. After Yi received the inheritance of the Gu King, she went to do it for me. She can't come back for now. Yiqing Luo's tone was extremely calm. Fourth Elder Miao's eyes flickered a few times, unable to differentiate the truth in Yiqing Luo's words. When Grand Elder Miao heard Yiqing Luo's words, he sighed. Since that's the case, then there's no other way. After all, you don't know that secluded palace's people will surround the Miao tribe tonight. Although his words sounded as if he was speaking up for Miao Yi, it was not a big deal. But when he listened carefully, this was obviously drawing hatred for Yiqing Luo. After hearing Great Elder Miao's words, the Miao tribesmen were surrounded by the Palace of Darkness disciples and their fates were unknown. He would never understand Miao Yi's departure. Instead, he would constantly complain in his heart. No matter what the reason is. When the Miao tribe was in trouble, as the Holy Maiden of the Miao tribe, she had to be there. However, the Holy Maiden had abandoned the Miao tribe for the sake of her so-called friend. Was she still a qualified Holy Maiden of the Miao tribe? In the Holy Maiden's heart, only that so-called friend was the most important. Hence, after this thought was born in the hearts of the Miao clansmen, all their fury would be directed onto Yiqing Luo. Great Elder Miao, your words. Yan Shaoyi was instantly infuriated. Her face turned black as she pointed at Great Elder Miao and was about to scold him. Before he could finish howling, he was stopped by Yiqing Luo. A mere Miao tribe is not worthy of my attention. Yiqing Luo was extremely arrogant as her brows were mixed with faint ridicule. Let's go take a look at the secluded palace. Yiqing Luo had long seen through Grand Elder Miao's tricks. But she was too lazy to care. To her, the Miao tribesmen were just outsiders. She didn't care how he thought about her, and she didn't want to care either. What she needed to do now was to stand on the side of Miao Yi's friend and protect the Miao tribe from being annihilated. That was enough. Yiqing Luo and the rest didn't even bother to take a look at the Miao tribe's elders as they directly walked towards the direction of that huge magical beast. Coincidentally, after Fourth Elder Miao finished his question, at the instance when Yiqing Luo and the rest left, he slowly raised his head. His vision seemed as though it was directed towards Yiqing Luo and the rest's backs. But if one took a closer look, that vision went past Yiqing Luo and the rest, staring straight at those people from the secluded palace. Finally, his vision seemed to have met with someone. Chapter 2949. Under the gaze of the Miao clansmen and the disciples of the Dark Abyss Palace, Yiqing Luo and the rest slowly walked over. Mei viciously looked down at Yiqing Luo from above, as if she was standing on a higher position and had many backers, so there was a kind of unbridled complacency. Yiqing Luo, you've got guts. Mei's sharp voice was filled with jealousy. Come to think of it, You also know that the Miao tribe suffered such an undeserved disaster because of you, so you obediently came out to die? What else can she do besides throwing her life away? Yin Zhenfei was also full of hatred. Even the veil could not conceal the viciousness on her face. Could it be that she still wants to rely on the Miao tribe to avoid our condemnation? Mei covered her mouth and laughed coquettishly. Because of her, the Miao tribe has suffered such an undeserved calamity and is facing the danger of being devoured by our palace of Yu. Why would we help her? Both of their voices were deliberately spread out with their xianxia. Almost everyone at the entrance of the Miao tribe could hear it clearly. Immediately, these two people's words aroused the hatred in the hearts of countless Miao clansmen. Facing the encirclement of more than 1,000 people from the Palace of Abyss. In addition, there was an extremely ferocious-looking magical beast. These Miao tribesmen had personally witnessed the strength of the Palace of Darkness guards yesterday. If they resisted, it was like striking a rock with an egg. They were all extremely worried and frightened. They were afraid that the Palace of Darkness would destroy the Miao tribe and they would not be able to fight back. Now, under such a worrying and fearful situation, the people from secluded Darkness Palace had pointed out that their Miao tribe was totally implicated. It was entirely because of Yiqing Luo that they were surrounded by secluded Darkness Palace. In his heart, a belly full of hatred towards Yiqing Luo surged up. Immediately, the Miao tribesmen who did not even dare to let out a fart under the suppression of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. At this moment, all of them were shouting for Yiqing Luo to get out of the Miao tribe. For a moment, the entire entrance of the Miao tribe was in an uproar. Mei and Yin Shaoyi looked at each other and smiled. She felt that with just a few words she was able to stir up so many people, causing them to burst out with complaints towards Yiqing Luo. They felt extremely proud of themselves. Gossip had always been the sharpest weapon. Once a person was corroded by rumors, and it became more and more intense, it could completely crush a person into utter disarray. They wanted to make use of the Miao clansmen to make Yiqing Luo feel the pressure from the rumors. But they seemed to have miscalculated. Facing thousands of people's accusations and curses, Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change at all. Even the group of people behind her were calm and did not seem to be able to stir up any waves. The Miao tribesman's reprimand was like a punch hitting cotton, soft and soft. It made them feel suffocated in their chests and they couldn't get it out no matter what. And the group of them didn't seem to care at all, completely unaffected by the numerous criticisms of the Miao tribesmen. This caused Mei and Yin Zhenfei's expressions to freeze bit by bit. Useless trash. A cold shout came from behind the two of them. Their faces paled, and they immediately bowed and nodded respectfully. Second Palace Master. Behind the two of them, a slim figure slowly walked over. That person was covered by a black veil, revealing only a pair of beautiful fox-like eyes. Chapter 2950. This sentence was filled with a dignified roar. Instantly, it made those noisy Miao tribesmen quieten down. The entire Miao tribe's entrance was within 100 miles radius. Only the rustling sound of the wind blowing past the trees could be heard. The air in the entire space seemed to have condensed into a layer of frost. All the Miao tribesmen felt their bodies shivering slightly, from the bottom of their feet to the top of their heads, surging with traces of chilliness. Second Palace Lord stood on that huge magical beast's head. Her posture was extremely high. Her bewitching cold eyes had turned into a sharp blade, ruthlessly slicing Yiqing Luo. However, everyone's hearts were filled with anxiety and fear, while their nerves were stretched taut. Meeting with Second Palace Lord's icy cold gaze, Yiqing Luo's face didn't show any signs of panic, not even a little bit of fear. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her slender fingers gently brushed past her lower jaw, curling it over her shoulder, a wisp of fine black hair twined around her fingertips. Following that, her pink lips curled up into a sweet smile. That devastatingly beautiful face gave off a suffocating charm, which was enough to charm all living beings. Every action, every smile and every frown. As compared to the half-concealed Second Palace Lord, she was obviously more dazzling. Second Palace Lord's eyes were suffused with a poisonous chill. She coldly swept past Yiqing Luo's face, which made one want to destroy it as she gritted her teeth and gave a cold harumph. Yiqing Luo, do you think that just by casually flirting someone will save you? Or, will the people from the Palace of Darkness show mercy? What a pity our Palace of Darkness has no lack of women. Jealousy caused Second Palace Lord's fox-like eyes to be tainted with a malicious glint. Even her voice became sharp and unpleasant. This Palace Lord doesn't have the mood to waste time with you here. If you don't surrender, This palace lord will give the order to attack and occupy the Miao tribe. Giggle giggle. A low laughter spilled out from Yiqing Luo's pink lips. The young lady covered her mouth, her eyebrows curved into a crescent, bewitching like a blooming rose, making one unable to shift their gaze away. I also have to say, second palace lord, it's such a pity. The girl's voice was unique and sweet, like pearls falling on a plate, pleasing to the ear to the extreme. Whatever the Palace of Darkness does to the Miao tribe has nothing to do with me. The people of the Miao tribe have nothing to do with me. I don't care if you want to kill or torture them. Yiqing Luo's words were very light and her calm voice didn't reveal any excess emotions. Yiqing Luo's sentence had indeed aroused the Miao clansman's endless fury. Yiqing Luo, do you have to be so shameless? If you hadn't implicated the Miao tribe, how would our Miao tribe have suffered such an undeserved calamity? You still dare to say that it has nothing to do with us? It's all your fault. You are the one who harmed the Miao tribe. Shouldn't you bear this responsibility? How dare you say that you treat the saintess as a friend? If you really treat the saintess as a friend, then you should stand up and sacrifice yourself to protect the Miao tribe. You want to escape by yourself and let us pay with our lives for the grudge between you and the Palace of Darkness? Don't you dare. Numerous grievances as well as exploding anger almost overturned the Miao tribe. The Miao clansmen's fear towards death made them speak without thinking. Towards all the abuse and questioning. Yiqing Luo totally didn't treat it as anything, as though she turned a deaf ear to it, unmoved. Chapter 2951. Motive. Second palace mistress chuckled as she mumbled this word. That pair of seductive eyes curved even more. My motive is only you. Her voice wasn't considered soft. It drifted melodiously above the entire Miao tribe entrance. Yiqing Luo, take a good look at this face of mine. Second palace mistress leapt upwards and in a blink of an eye, an afterimage flashed past and she had already appeared 2 steps away from Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo didn't move at all. What came towards her was second palace mistress's powerful profound energy. Like a bone-cutting sharp blade, it slashed towards Yiqing Luo's face. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered slightly but she didn't intentionally evade. Just as this burst of profound energy was about to land on Yiqing Luo's face, Yiqing Luo's eyelashes suddenly drew a silhouette of flowing light. Like a ripple on water, layer after layer of ripples appeared in mid-air. Second palace mistress's profound energy. It hit on that ripple. Instantly, it turned into nothingness. The surrounding violent aura was like a whirlwind, lingering between the two of them. Like the tumbling huge waves in the vast sea, constantly stirring up the most ferocious whirlwind. In this whirlwind, the two of them who stood facing each other had no change in their expressions. Second palace mistress's eyes were seductive, but revealed an obvious murderous intent. She sneered as she used her hand to slowly remove the black veil which was covering her face, revealing that face which Yiqing Luo was extremely familiar with. Second palace mistress's red lips curled as her slender fingers caressed that smooth fair face bit by bit as she asked with a low laugh, Yiqing Luo, do you still recognize me? This face, Yiqing Luo had coincidentally taken a look at it before. At that time, her reaction was that she felt that she had seen wrongly. But now, this face was revealed in front of her without any concealment. This confirmed that she had not seen wrongly right from the start. This second palace mistress's face was Yiqing Qian's. That face which was exactly the same as Yiqing Qian without any difference. Especially when he heard the second palace master's question. For a moment, Yiqing Luo really thought that the person in front of her was the same Yiqing Qian who had been tortured into a meat patty by her when the dark forces invaded the West Continent. However, it was only for a moment. Yiqing Luo immediately rejected her own thoughts. Because although the person in front of him had the exact same face as Yiqing Qian, but whether it was the tone of voice or the temperament, it was totally not the aura that a woman like Yiqing Qian could have. Moreover, according to the first time he fought with the deputy palace master during the Holy Maiden selection ceremony of the Miao tribe, the second palace master didn't know her at all. And his tone was completely different. What? Seeing that sister is still alive, shouldn't you be a little happier? Second palace mistress curled her red lips, fully releasing the charm of Yiqing Qian's face. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she suddenly had another guess in her mind. She pondered for a moment, then stared at the vice palace master and smiled tentatively. Is that so? If you really are my good sister, I will naturally be happy. Sure enough, when he heard her words, the assistant palace master's expression changed slightly. That pair of seductive beautiful eyes flickered a few times. Luo was even more certain of her own thoughts as she used her hand to support her lower jaw, putting on an astonished look. I've heard that the dark forces have a certain sacred technique which looks exactly the same as my good sister. Seeing it today, it's indeed so. Chapter 2952. This palace lord is indeed not Yi Qingqian. Second palace lord admitted readily as she raised her brows frivolously, but this body, this face is indeed Yi Qingqian's. Early on, Wolf Saint Fa treated Yi Qingqian specially. Yi Luo roughly guessed it. After all, Wolf Saint Fa's expression towards Yi Qingqian was really not love. Later on, she heard that Yi Qingqian was merely a substitute for Wolf Saint Fa's moonlight. Yi Luo understood. But if she didn't remember wrongly, haven't Yi Qingqian's face and body been destroyed by me? That battle in the West Continent, Yi Luo had destroyed Yi Qingqian's face and even her body had become minced meat. Basically, she was no longer in human form. Wolf Saint Fa actually had a way to use that broken body to revive the person in front of him? Dark secret arts, it's a darkness that you will never be able to imagine. Second Palace Lord's eyes were filled with delight. Yi Luo's vision swept past the Second Palace Lord's face, which was completely similar to Yi Qingqian's. So, you're the woman that Wolf Saint Fa has been pining for, Fox Saint Fa. That time after Yi Qingqian joined the Dark Forces. Her name was changed by the Wolf Saint Law to protect her who. Presumably, Wolf Saint Fa had treated Yi Qingqian as a substitute right from the start. Second Palace Lord, who was also Fox Saint Fa, curled her red lips as her fingers gently caressed her chin. That's right, this Palace Lord is Fox Saint Fa. Yi Luo's eyes dimmed slightly. Indeed, this Second Palace Lord was Wolf Saint Fa who used the dark secret arts, using Yi Qingqian's body as a medium to revive Fox Saint Fa. This kind of secret art is extremely evil. In her mind, Old Man Song's exclamation suddenly rang, forbidden secret arts. The reason why it's forbidden is because this kind of taboo has already exceeded the limits of what this world can tolerate. Using forbidden secret arts, not only will it disturb the world's balance, it will also disturb the world's order. Using a forbidden secret skill requires the same price. Old Man Song let out a light sigh. Fox Saint Technique should have died a long time ago, and his corpse might not even be complete. Wolf Saint Technique used some sort of method to forcefully keep the soul of Fox Saint Technique in order to find a perfect vessel to resurrect Fox Saint Technique. But, to resurrect a dead person, this goes against the laws of nature. If the Fox Sacred Technique succeeds in resurrecting, the Wolf Sacred Technique will definitely pay the same price. Yi Luo raised her brows. In other words, the current Wolf Saint Technique is trash? You can't say that. After all, the dark forces have already joined the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Old Man Song answered very straightforwardly. The background of the Palace of Darkness is still unclear, but it should be said that they have a way to extend the life of the Wolf Saint Technique. However, the only thing he could be sure of now was the Wolf Saint Law's body was indeed not as good as before. Otherwise, why would the Wolf Saint Technique be so in love with the Fox Saint Technique, to the point where he could even disregard his own life? They would absolutely not let Fox Saint Law lead the people from Abyss Palace to deal with Yi Luo alone. Yi Luo. Seeing that Yi Luo didn't reply for a long time, Fox Saint Law's expression sunk a little, as he opened his mouth impatiently. Although this Palace Lord isn't Yi Qingqian, but since this Palace Lord has taken over this body, then this body's hatred. Chapter 2953. Pfft. Yi Luo laughed out loud because of Fox Sacred Law's sentence. She laughed till her eyes were curved as she ridiculed, Fox Sacred Law, Second Palace Mistress of Secluded Palace, trying to kill me and finding so many excuses, aren't you embarrassed? A cold glint flashed past Fox Sacred Law's eyes as she waved her hand and a 9-segment long whip swiftly appeared in her hands. Her bare hands were covered with moss as her eyes were filled with a cold glint as she gritted her teeth and shouted angrily, "Kill!" Following Fox Sacred Law's words, thousands of people from Secluded Palace started to raise their arms and shout loudly. So shocked that the Miao tribesmen started to tremble. Spare us, Second Palace Mistress, we are not on the same side as that slut. Second Palace Mistress, you can do whatever you want to this slut, we are innocent. The Miao tribesmen continued to plead for mercy, but it didn't stop the Secluded Palace's disciples from shouting. On the contrary, it ignited their fighting spirit. These Secluded Palace's disciples had undergone a period of brainwashing in Secluded Palace. Towards secluded palace they were completely obedient. Now looking at the slightly famous Miao tribesmen in North Wave continent, being so terrified and kept begging for mercy, they felt extremely complacent, and felt that joining secluded palace was indeed the right choice. Grand Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao walked towards Yiqing Luo in quick steps as they looked at the chaotic scene. Miss Yi, if secluded palace really came for you, you should bear this responsibility. Yiqing Luo had been concentrating on Fox Sacred Law's actions. Suddenly she felt two bursts of energy attacking her from behind. Especially after hearing the shameless words spoken by the great Elder Miao. Yiqing Luo's gaze turned cold. She wanted to send the two sneak-attacking people flying with a backhand kick. But at the same time, the 9-segment long whip in Fox Sacred Law's hands had already turned into an afterimage as it swept towards Yiqing Luo's face. Attacks from the front and back. This made Yiqing Luo's expression sunk instantly. She swiftly changed her footwork and was about to leap forward to let these two waves of attacks collide with her. But just at this moment, a tender voice was heard from behind. Qing Luo, just focus on dealing with the secluded palace. This group of fools, let me teach them what brains are. Immediately following that, Yiqing Luo sensed that the two bursts of energy which were closing in on her had been blocked by a sickle which was flickering with black rays. Yan Xiaoyi's pretty face was filled with coldness. You tolerate them a lot on account of Yi's face, but I won't. This group of scum, I'll hack one of them to death with one saber strike. The moment Yan Xiaoyi moved, Xiao Jin and Peach naturally followed suit. For a moment, the scene became extremely chaotic. Yiqing Luo did not turn back. Behind her was a group of brothers who had fought alongside her. She would definitely protect him well. Yiqing Luo's eyes were icy cold as her thoughts moved. A huge black leopard howled at the sky. When those thick limbs landed on the ground, they smashed 4 huge holes. Sand and pebbles flew everywhere. It shocked the secluded Darkness Palace disciples who were surrounding him, and they couldn't help but take a few steps back. What are you afraid of? It was just a leopard. Can it be as powerful as our second palace lord's blood sacrifice? After the secluded Darkness Palace's disciples saw that black leopard, they swallowed a mouthful of saliva. As though they were convincing themselves and also as though they were convincing others. Blood sacrifice was the name of that dinosaur-like magical beast which Mei and Yanjin Fei were standing on. Chapter 2954. Don't be afraid. Let's attack directly. The Nether Palace's disciples were ignited with fighting spirit. All of them raised their weapons up high as they charged forward once again. In their eyes, no matter how powerful Yiqing Luo and the others were, they were merely a few people. As for them, there were several thousands of them. And they were the Nether Palace's disciples whose power was close to the Imperial Palace. Those Miao people were already scared out of their wits as they curled up on one side, shivering. What they wanted to deal with was merely Yiqing Luo and the few others. Thousands of people, how could they not deal with a few kids? Moreover, they still had the secret weapon from the Nether Palace. Fox Saint Technique's eyes were filled with a venomous glint as she stared fixedly at Yiqing Luo's unperturbed expression, and then looked at the surrounding secluded palace's disciples, with a look of high morale. Her eyes were filled with pride. Just a silly leopard and you want to turn the situation around? She laughed coldly as her lips twitched. Yiqing Luo, no matter if it's Yiqing Chen's hatred or the hatred between you and the dark forces today, I will avenge them all. Her long whip coiled, totally not showing any mercy. The sound of the long whip sweeping through the air was piercingly cold. It was maddening. If one leopard isn't enough, then how about adding another bird? Facing Fox Saint Fe's provocation, Yiqing Luo didn't have any intention of being moved. Her tone was very calm. Her eyes were sparkling like stars, extremely resplendent. But if one took a closer look, one could tell that under this resplendent, there was a hidden killing intent. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold as she cried out a name, Qi Yan. Swoosh, a piercing sound pierced through the sky as it reverberated over. Immediately following that was a golden flowing light which dazzled one's eyes. On the horizon, the scorching flames enveloped everything. It also caused the torches in the Nether Palace's disciples' hands to dim down. Hua hua hua, another piercing sound in the air, bringing along a whirlwind-like airwave. Everyone's gazes at this instance were all attracted by the shadow on the horizon. The golden flames revolved as it scattered a dazzling ray. Every phoenix feather seemed as though it was bathed in fire, bathing in that flickering flame. Swoosh, there was another sound. The huge flaming thing in the sky spread its wings. The phoenix feathers were flowing with light and vibrant colors. It's a phoenix? No. That's not a phoenix, it's a vermilion bird. One of the 4 sacred beasts, the vermilion bird. Vermilion bird? How could there be a vermilion bird? The appearance of red flame. Not only were the Palace of Darkness disciples shocked. Even the tribesmen of the Miao tribe were so shocked by the blazing flames that they could only open their mouths in disbelief. Do you think this is enough? Yiqing Luo raised her brows slightly, smiling quietly and elegantly. Fox St. Law's pupils instantly constricted. The Fox St. Law raised his head and stared at Qi Yan. Don't you feel that I look very familiar? Yiqing Luo opened her mouth with a light smile, as she asked the question that Fox St. Fa had in his heart. How could this vermilion bird not be familiar? Ever since the 4 great ancient sacred beasts fell into a deep slumber, the King of Darkness had always been searching for a way to awaken the 4 saint beasts. Furthermore, he wanted to form a contract with the 4 great sacred beasts. The first target that the King of Darkness had set his eyes on was Vermilion Bird. Because Vermilion Bird's flame was totally different from other fire-attributed magical beasts. Vermilion Bird was a flame which contained light and dark elements. It was most suitable to be used by the dark forces to control people's hearts. Chapter 2955. Although Fox Sacred Law had died early, but she had participated in many activities regarding the Vermilion Bird. Basically, she was certain that this Vermilion Bird belonged to the dark forces. Why? Would it become Yiqing Luo's war pet? Yiqing Luo saw Fox Sacred Law's shocked and puzzled expression and didn't open her mouth to explain. She only raised her head and squinted her eyes as she stared at Qi Yan and said calmly, "I'll leave these people to you and Shiju." Clang, a cry resounded through the 9 heavens. Qi Yan's arrogant voice followed, "Just these scums, you still need this sacred beast to make a move. Ugly freak, you're too weak. I asked you to make a move and you still have so much bullshit. T. Do you want me to seal you in the pet space before you're satisfied?" Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes. Qi Yan indeed quietened down. Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze and returned it to Fox Sacred Law. Fox Sacred Law's fingers clenched tightly, apparently infuriated by Yiqing Luo's provocation. Her eyes were scarlet red as she growled sinisterly, "This palace mistress wants to see how 2 magical beasts are going to turn the tables." She didn't place her hopes on those Nether Palace disciples. She directly waved the 9-segment whip in her hand towards a direction behind her. "All of you attack." Rumble, an earth-shattering loud sound rang from the direction where Fox Sacred Law waved her whip. Immediately following that, puppets dressed in Nether Palace's guard uniforms swarmed over. Dead corpse puppets. Yiqing Luo's eyes dimmed as she speedily retreated a few steps. There were at least 100 over of those dead corpse puppets. No matter how fast Yiqing Luo's speed was, they had already surrounded her in a swift speed. After the secret of the dead corpse puppets was exposed, the people from Nether Palace still dared to take out the dead corpse puppets unscrupulously? They had long decided to massacre the Miao tribe, not leaving anyone alive, to protect the secret of these semi-finished products? Second Palace Mistress. You're incredible. Yan Zhenfei leapt down from the magical beast's body as she looked at Fox Sacred Law with admiration and respect. Mei, who was standing by the side, also tried to flatter her. "That little scoundrel still wants to hoot with our second palace mistress just based on her? She's just a little slut who relies on men." The second palace lord raised his head arrogantly, looking high and mighty as if he didn't want to talk to mortals. However, there was a hint of pride in his eyes. Obviously, the flattery of these 2 made her feel happy both physically and mentally. As Yan Zhenfei sucked up to him, he looked excitedly in the direction the undead corpse puppets were heading in. He could not help but laugh out loud. "Ha ha ha. Yiqing Luo, this is our Palace of Seclusion's strongest weapon. Using it to end you is considered as giving you face." Mei's eyes were also fixed on that side. On seeing Yiqing Luo, who was surrounded by the dead corpse puppets and totally unable to be seen, her face was filled with a sinister smile. Fox Saintess cast a sidelong glance at these 2 women who she looked down on. She asked indifferently, "It looks like the enmity between you and her isn't small." Yan Zhenfei's eyes were filled with viciousness. "That scoundrel destroyed my family. If not for the Holy Wolf technique taking me in, I would have been killed by that scoundrel." She was filled with resentment, but she did not notice it. After she finished her sentence, a cold glint flashed past Fox Saintess's eyes. This glint of cold glint was noticed by Mei, who always had many thoughts in her mind, but she had no intention to remind her. Chapter 2956. Snatch your man? Fox Sacred Law's interest was piqued by May's words. May clenched her fists tightly as she gritted her teeth and stared at Yiqing Luo's direction. Right? So I hate her so much that I can't wait to disfigure her and throw her in front of that man, to let that man abandon her. Fox Sacred Law squinted her bewitching beautiful eyes as her vision landed on May's young and charming face, as she stared deeply for a long time. Suddenly she laughed softly. This palace mistress is very curious. What kind of man is he, to be able to make you blame Yiqing Luo instead of that man? Why should I blame that man? May's eyes flickered slightly as she asked in puzzlement. If that man really loves you, why would he be snatched away by other women? Fox Sacred Law brushed her long hair as she gave a fox-like bewitching smile, just like Wolf Sacred Law, because he loves this palace mistress, so no matter which woman appears, she will not be able to snatch him away from this palace mistress's hands. Although Fox Sacred Law's voice sounded very calm, as though it was an ordinary chat. But if one listened carefully, one would be able to hear the thick threat in it. Moreover, her gaze seemed to be drifting towards Yan Zhenfei. The meaning behind her words was very obvious. But Yan Zhenfei apparently didn't realize this point. She even nodded her head in agreement. Right? If it's true love, it will absolutely not be snatched away by other women. Wolf Sacred Law's heart towards Second Palace Mistress. We can all see it clearly. There is absolutely no one who snatched Wolf Sacred Law from Second Palace Mistress's hands. As Yan Zhenfei spoke, she suddenly felt that something was amiss. She took a careful look at Fox Sacred Law. But she met with Fox Sacred Law's icy cold face, as though it could freeze into frost at any moment. Her heart thumped hard. Could it be that she said something wrong? She was just going along with Second Palace Mistress's words. May's eyes were extremely cold as she hid the smile on her lips, thinking silently, "Ha, idiot." Although on the surface Second Palace Mistress didn't love Wolf Sacred Law. But Wolf Sacred Law had loved Second Palace Mistress for so many years, and had guarded Second Palace Mistress for so many years, and in order to revive Second Palace Mistress, he had done so many things. Even if Second Palace Mistress didn't like Wolf Sacred Law. However, the Second Palace Master was certain that the Wolf Saint Law was hers. Yan Zhenfei knew very well how she got her position as the emissary of the Gloomy Palace. Yan Zhenfei had seduced the Wolf Saint technique in exchange for it. For the Second Palace Master. Yan Zhenfei was her man's bed-warming maid. Facing Yan Zhenfei, the Second Palace Lord naturally did not have a good expression. However, Yan Zhenfei did not think that this was a big problem. Moreover, it was normal for a man to have 3 or 4 wives. She was so young, yet she followed an old man like Wolf Saint Law. Not competing with the Second Palace Master for the position of the first wife was already a good deed to the Second Palace Master. Naturally, he didn't think too much about other things. Fox Saint Technique realized that his words did not alarm Yan Zhenfei. Instead, she appeared to be fearless. She felt that Yan Zhenfei was showing off her relationship with the Wolf Saint Technique. Immediately Fox Saint Law's face turned cold. Since Envoy Yan feels that what this Palace Lord said is right, then now this Palace Lord orders you to bring along these Palace Lord's guards to capture Yiqing Luo alive and bring her back to Secluded Palace. Are you willing to accept this? Yan Zhenfei's face instantly turned pale. She almost collapsed onto the ground. Chapter 2957. Emissary Yin, the Second Palace Lord only gave you this mission because he thinks highly of you. Don't let him down. May fanned the flames. But May's words had just landed. The Fox Sacred Technique's seductive gaze had already landed on May. Since you have such a close relationship with Emissary Yin, you should accompany her. May's smile froze. No matter what the two of them were thinking. In the end, they could only listen to Fox Sacred Technique's command as they charged towards the direction of the 100 over puppets. With these 100 or so undead corpse puppets, no matter what, they should be safe. May and Yan Zhenfei were terrified of Yiqing Luo's mysterious power. They could only use this excuse to pacify their emotions. The two of them stood on the left and right as they neared the puppets. An endless rotting stench entered their nostrils. They couldn't help but furrow their brows. But in order to ascertain whether Yiqing Luo was alive or dead, they endured the rotting stench as they probed their senses. Usually, 20 to 30 puppets were disguised as the guards of Secluded Palace. Secluded Palace intentionally used a fragrance bag to conceal the stench on the puppets. But today, 100 over puppets appeared in a pile. The rotting stench on them couldn't be concealed at all. May and Yan Zhenfei, who were extremely concerned about their looks, naturally couldn't stand this stench. Even when they released their senses to sense Yiqing Luo's aura, their brows were tightly knitted into a bundle. The perception of the two was constantly magnifying and spreading. Until they searched through the 100 over puppets, but they didn't sense any other aura other than the puppets. Both of their eyes were filled with ecstasy. There was no trace of Yiqing Luo's aura. That meant Yiqing Luo was dead. Dead. Ah. Ha ha ha. Mei couldn't help but burst out laughing as her face was twisted with ecstasy. Yiqing Luo is dead. She must be dead. Yan Zhenfei recalled Yiqing Luo's craftiness, and although her eyes were filled with joy, but she still looked around vigilantly. Let's see the corpse first. Yiqing Luo, that slut, is very crafty. Yiqing Luo's aura was totally gone, and this made these two people who hated Yiqing Luo so ecstatic that they totally disregarded the rotten stench from those dead corpses. One on the left and one on the right, the two of them pushed aside the undead corpse puppets and rushed to the center. The order that the corpse puppets received was only to kill Yiqing Luo. Yan Zhenfei and Mei also had the aura of gloomy palace. The corpse puppet didn't take the two of them seriously. Therefore, the two of them easily squeezed through the undead corpse puppet's encirclement. When the two of them were completely shrouded by the rancid odor, the encirclement was empty, causing them to be dumbfounded. Yan Zhenfei's eyes widened and she swallowed hard. The uneasiness in her heart was magnified. Corpses, corpses, why are there no corpses? Impossible. If that scoundrel wasn't here, then what were the guards attacking? Mei also shook her head in disbelief. But no matter how much they looked around, they could not see anything. They didn't even see that fiery figure. And those undead corpse puppets were still squeezing towards the center. Chapter 2958. It's Yiqing Luo's remnant profound energy. Mei was the first to detect the target of the corpse puppets. That remnant profound energy was right at the place where they were standing. Mei immediately pulled Yan Zhenfei away as she retreated a few steps backwards. That immortal chi fluttered in the white muslin dress as it crashed onto the puppet's body, instantly being stained by the corroded corpse fluid on the puppet's body. What followed was an extremely thick rotting smell. Mei's expression instantly turned black as something was churning in her stomach. Whereas Yan Zhenfei, who was flung away by Mei, also staggered forward due to her sudden action. Just like that, he threw himself onto a puppet. Yan Zhenfei raised her head in a fluster. She met with the puppet's pair of empty and soulless eyes, which were so dark that there wasn't a single reflection. Ah! Yan Zhenfei screamed as she pushed the puppet away in terror. However, those puppets were indestructible corpses to begin with. Yan Zhenfei's push not only didn't push the puppet away. Instead, she was forced to retreat several steps by the puppet's strength. Looking at the surrounding numerous puppets brandishing their claws, raising the weapons in their hands as they slashed down directly, Yan Zhenfei cried for help in terror. Sister Mei, save me. Save me. He. A crisp laughter suppressed Yan Zhenfei's cry for help. After she heard that laughter clearly, Yan Zhenfei's pupils dilated as she stared at the direction where the voice came from. She saw a young lady in a fiery red dress floating in midair above the puppet's corpse as she leisurely smiled faintly at her. You. Yan Zhenfei was in disbelief. It's not like I've never dealt with these corpse puppets before. Yiqing Luo smiled enchantingly as her tone was filled with ridicule. This kind of defective product, you still have the cheek to bring it in front of me? Apparently, Secluded Darkness Palace's plan to attack the Miao clan wasn't premeditated, but it was a sudden move. There wasn't much planning at all. So she directly brought her men and charged over. These corpse puppets were on a totally different level from the guards at the Sacred Maiden selection ceremony yesterday, as well as the 5 Secluded Darkness Palace guards they met in the underground tunnel. Secluded Darkness had said it before. Those guards from the Palace of Darkness were only half-finished products. In that case, these were even inferior to semi-finished products, which meant that they were just abandoned defective products. Fox St. Law was really impatient. He brought along these defective goods and rushed to the Miao tribe to encircle and annihilate them. This knowledge made Yiqing Luo even more certain of one thing. The Miao tribe indeed had a spy. They took the opportunity when the Sacred Maiden, the former Sacred Maiden, and Dmo Xian were not around to launch a joint attack. In other words, the Secluded Palace had basically confirmed that Dmo Xian had no way to rush over to join in the battle, so they hurriedly brought along this batch of defective goods to attack. This thought made Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk slightly. For things like Miaogu, Yiqing Luo didn't know much. There was no way to know if the Miao tribe spy could detect that Dmo Xian was poisoned. Previously, Yiqing Luo had always thought that the people from Secluded Darkness Palace's motive was her. However, after seeing these defective puppets, Yiqing Luo could roughly guess. The main motive of Secluded Darkness Palace was to ascertain where Diamo Xian was. If they could take this chance to deal with Diamo Xian, that would naturally be the best. Even if they really couldn't deal with Diamo Xian, taking down one Yiqing Luo would be a gain for Secluded Darkness Palace. At the very least, they would swallow up the Miao tribe and make use of them. Chapter 2959. She was unable to ascertain if the other party knew that Diamo Xian was poisoned. Yiqing Luo didn't have the mood to delay any further. She leapt up and the feather fan in her hands drew out several strong winds. Following that, numerous demonic red rays shot out from the red feather fan. Like thin red threads, they spread out to form a huge net, enveloping the corpses and puppets within. Mei and Yan Zhenfei, who were surrounded by numerous dead corpse puppets, their expressions turned uglier by the minute. They struggled with all their might, trying to escape from the encirclement of the dead corpse puppets. But Yiqing Luo's remaining profound energy made the dead corpse puppets completely lose control. It was easy for Mei and Yan Zhenfei to enter, but difficult to get out. Shouldn't you feel honored to die under the weapons that you're so proud of? Yiqing Luo looked at the two of them who were struggling desperately, as she couldn't help but ridicule them. Yiqing Luo. You scoundrel. Scoundrel. I won't die, I won't. Yan Zhenfei screamed in rage. By now, how would Yan Zhenfei still not understand? Right from the start, Yiqing Luo didn't reveal herself, intentionally luring them into the encirclement of the dead corpse puppets. Then she used her remaining profound energy to attract the dead corpse puppets. Because of the command, she totally disregarded the both of them and directly attacked. This move of killing with a borrowed knife, Yiqing Luo used it flawlessly. Yan Zhenfei felt an endless rotting stench as though it was going to swallow her up. She was terrified as she screamed, "Second Palace Lord, please stop the command. Stop." The only plan now was to make Second Palace Lord stop the command to the dead corpse puppets. But no matter how Yan Zhenfei screamed, from the start till the end, Second Palace Lord hadn't said a single word. Ah. Yan Zhenfei's screams were buried by the sound of the puppets colliding. And then? There was no more sound. Even Mei, who hadn't made a single sound, had disappeared without a trace. At this moment, on the magical beast named Blood Sacrifice, which was like a dinosaur, Fox Saint Fa was leaning on the soft mat as his brows creased tightly. A cold voice rang beside his ear. "What do you think about this lass called Yiqing Luo?" That voice was like a venomous snake, so cold that it sent shivers down one's spine. However, the four disciples of the Palace of Darkness who were protecting the Fox Saint technique were still standing straight, as if they hadn't heard anything. In fact, only Huxing Fa alone could hear that cold voice. To be able to catch the eye of the Palace Master, there is naturally a reason for the Palace Master. Fox Saint Law replied indifferently. At such a young age she has such a deep mind. She's not an easy girl to deal with. The cold voice sneered, "No wonder the Palace Master asked me to come here." Fox Saint Law squinted her beautiful eyes, seeming to be a little indignant. Why is it that everyone says that the little scoundrel is powerful, but this palace mistress doesn't think that there's anything to fear about her? Towards Yiqing Luo, it wasn't only because of Yiqing Qian's body, but also the hatred towards Yiqing Luo. She herself had an unexplainable hatred towards Yiqing Luo. Do you really think that this move of borrowing a knife to kill, is just luck? The gloomy and cold voice is obviously jealous of the Fox Holy technique, a little cold. Fox Saint Law frowned. Tell this palace mistress if it's not luck, then what is it? If it wasn't for the fact that she understands your character, would she be able to guess that you would push those two trash out to die? The gloomy and cold voice had a rare interest as it really started to explain. Chapter 2960. And this interest made Fox Saint Law even more jealous. That lass's acuity is extremely strong. From the moment you let those defective products attack her, she must have thought of a plan. She also knows the characters of you and the two abandoned pawns very well. She knows that when she is in trouble, Yan Zhenfei and Mei, the two abandoned pawns, will come out to mock her. She also knows what you are thinking. The gloomy cold voice was mixed with a hint of laughter. It was the kind of excited laughter that one's blood was boiling after meeting a prey. Even if it was Fox Saint Law. Under this strange gloomy cold laughter, she couldn't help but feel a chill down her spine. She curled her fingers tightly. Her arrogant mentality made her unwilling to admit her fear towards the gloomy cold voice. She forced herself to stand up straight and gave a disdainful harumph. This palace mistress doesn't believe that scoundrel has such a scheming mind. It's just that her luck is a little better and she's relying on the backing of the overlord. The gloomy cold voice didn't add any more words towards Fox St. Law's strong support. Instead, it minded its own business and started talking about Yiqing Luo, that lass's actions, although it looks very simple but in actual fact to be like her, to borrow a knife to kill someone, and to borrow it so perfectly, even you. Second palace mistress can't do it. The gloomy cold voice disregarded Fox St. Law's arrogant words. Once again it praised Yiqing Luo. This kind of action was a heavy slap on Fox St. Law's face. And now it was using Fox St. Law to compare with Yiqing Luo. Thinking that Fox St. Law couldn't be compared to Yiqing Luo. This kind of words fell into the arrogant Fox St. Law's ears, and the disgust towards Yiqing Luo in his heart grew even more. And his disdain towards Yiqing Luo grew even more. Don't be unconvinced. The gloomy cold voice gave a few cold laughs. These 100 puppets, although they are all defective products, but after all there are quite a lot of them. Under the condition of not hurting a single puppet, leaving behind a strand of profound chi, and speedily getting away from the puppet's encirclement. To restrain those puppets. To be able to do this, not only does one need to be extremely fast, one also must be able to control one's profound energy freely and have 100% confidence. She wants to leave the encirclement of the puppets while holding her breath without anyone noticing, and she also wants to control the remaining profound energy. Let me ask you, second palace master, are you able to do it? At this point, the cold voice paused and threw out a rhetorical question. The question caused Linghu Xingfa's face to turn pale. After the 2 chess pieces fell into the trap she set up, she used the dead corpse puppet's unwillingness to give up until they reached their goal. She ordered the dead corpse puppets to encircle the 2 chess pieces. It's also very difficult to control this. This girl is really an interesting prey. I can't wait to bring this prey home and teach Teacher Zhou a good lesson. Stop your wishful thinking. Fox St. Law's eyes were dark and ruthless. Her seductive expression no longer existed, and her eyes were filled with jealousy and hatred. She is someone that the palace lord has taken a fancy to. You dare to snatch her from the palace lord? The gloomy cold voice didn't say another word. Fox St. Law gave a cold laugh as she squinted her beautiful eyes. That scoundrel has been described by you to be so mysterious. This palace lord would like to try how powerful that scoundrel is. Fox St. Law gave a cold harumph as a powerful profound energy fluctuation exploded from her body. Chapter 2961. Yiqing Luo was on high alert as she surveyed the surroundings, releasing her senses. In his mind, Old Man Song's voice was very anxious. What a dense evil energy. Although it was only for an instant, I can be sure that it came from the Earth Realm, from the Hell Palace. From Old Man Song's explanation, Yiqing Luo knew. The Hell Palace was an evil palace in the upper realm. The Underworld Palace, as its name suggested, was a place known as Hell on Earth. The people inside were basically not human anymore. They had all cultivated evil arts and turned into monsters that were neither human nor ghost. Compared to the small forces outside of the upper realm like the dark forces, it was even more terrifying. After all, the Underworld Palace was filled with a bunch of lunatics who researched all sorts of evil arts. A bunch of madmen who didn't care about their lives at all. It could be said that the people of the Earth domain would tremble in fear when the Underworld Palace was mentioned. No one dared to provoke the Underworld Palace. No one was willing to provoke the Underworld Palace. Who would dare to provoke someone who didn't want to live? After Yiqing Luo heard all these, the expression on her face congealed. Hell Manor? Did someone from the Palace of Gloomy Darkness invite a madman from the Underworld Palace to help? We still do not know what the power behind the secluded Palace of Tenebrous Palace is. Are they hired as helpers, or are they in cahoots with the Underworld Palace? All of these are possible. Old Man Song's tone was extremely heavy. Girl, if the people from the Underworld Palace make a move, if you can escape, it's best to escape as much as possible. Old Man Song added another sentence in the end. To be able to make Old Man Song say the word, escape. From this, it could be seen exactly how powerful that so-called Underworld Palace was. Yiqing Luo sensed the surroundings for a long time. He didn't sense anything strange at all. At this moment, Yiqing Luo's body moved. Her strong sense of perception allowed her to evade swiftly. A powerful gust of wind exploded from the place where she had just been standing. The terrifying chi waves surged like a tide. The surrounding Miao tribesmen were so terrified that they screamed out loud. Just how powerful was he? How profound was his profound rank to be able to create such a sensation? Vice Palace Master of Dark Abyss Palace? He was actually so powerful. The Miao tribesman's fear towards the Palace of Darkness deepened once again. Compared to the shock and fear of the Miao tribesman, Yiqing Luo's expression was extremely calm. Her cold eyes glanced sideways at the place where she had just been standing and the shockwave created. She narrowed her eyes and looked towards the direction where the profound energy had come from. Fox Saint Fa opened her arms and floated in midair. Her veil fluttered and her profound energy continued to surge. Finally willing to take action yourself? Yiqing Luo sneered in ridicule. Fox Saint's eyes turned slightly cold, her exquisite and seductive face looked sinister and awe-inspiring. Yiqing Luo, it's your honor to die in this palace master's hands. As soon as he finished speaking, the Fox Saint technique flew out, her hands were soft and boneless, drawing out countless roaring profound energy. That profound energy cut through the air, extremely piercingly cold. When it was charging straight at them, Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly felt hot. She narrowed her eyes and carefully stared at the profound heart jade on the Fox Saint Fa's chest. A yellow-quality profound jade heart was releasing an extremely dazzling golden light. Yellow-grade profound heart jade. Yiqing Luo speedily retreated a few steps as she gave a cold smile. She had not expected that after the Fox Saint technique took over Yiqing Qian's body, it also took over Yiqing Qian's profound heart jade. But this quality of profound heart jade. Chapter 2962. Lass, you still need to be careful. This woman has that evil qi on her. She should have had direct contact with the people from the Hell Palace. Old Man Tsang reminded her in his divine sense. Yiqing Luo clenched the glower flame fan in her hand. Her gaze stared unblinkingly at Fox Saint Law, whose beautiful eyes were filled with hatred. That intense hatred. It was extremely obvious. A woman in rage and hatred has unlimited potential. Her enmity towards me is too deep, not only because of jealousy but also that evil qi unknowingly affected her. Yiqing Luo just took one look and saw through the root of it. Old Man Tsang also thought so. Indeed so, evil qi is the easiest thing to affect people's hearts. While they were talking, Fox Saint Law's second wave of attack once again came swiftly. Phew, a sound of air breaking was heard. That force directly swept past Yiqing Luo's dress. It carried an extremely biting cold. The strong wind suddenly rose, making Yiqing Luo backhand, open the glower flame fan, and immediately counterattacked. Boom! A loud sound. Two forces exploded in midair. Yiqing Luo's figure was forced to retreat a few steps. The force which brushed past her dress also shattered her sleeves. The red-like fire sleeves turned into rags, fluttering along with the hurricane. Yiqing Luo frowned, glancing sideways at her own wide sleeve, leaving only a white inner garment. Yellow-grade profound jade heart. It was actually able to release such a powerful force. Looked like she had underestimated Fox Saint Law. Yiqing Luo might as well tore off the other wide sleeve and flung it aside. Without the obstruction of the wide sleeve, it was even more enjoyable to fight. In the air, the two forces of profound waves were still rippling. Everyone was shocked by the power in the air as their hearts trembled. In everyone's eyes, although Yiqing Luo's sleeve was shattered. But Fox Saint Law was forced by Yiqing Luo to retreat more than 10 meters, and even stood firmly in a rather sorry state. Could be said that, this confrontation, both of them didn't gain any advantage. They really couldn't see the gap between the two strength. But because they couldn't see, everyone's admiration towards Yiqing Luo was even more. One must know that Yiqing Luo was just a 15-year-old girl. His opponent was the evil palace's second palace master, who was on par with the monarch palace. To be able to fight to a draw, Yiqing Luo was already very impressive. Fox Saint technique was startled for a moment by this clash. A trace of anger gradually appeared in her enchanting eyes. Her brows creased tightly as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo's direction. Fox Sacred Technique, just one move and you're admitting defeat? Unfortunately, under Fox Sacred Technique's vengeful gaze, Yiqing Luo still had to tease him with a tender smile. Fox Saint Law's pupils were instantly dyed red, profound qi once again exploding. The attack was swift and fierce. Yiqing Luo's glower flame fan opened up and the raging profound energy blended with the glower flame fan. A huge red dragon emerged from the glowing flame fan. Boom boom boom, the red dragon soared into the sky and covered half of the sky. Roar, Clang, clang, when the red dragon appeared, the roars of Shiju and Qiyan also resounded. The sky above the entire Miao tribe was filled with the roars of wild beasts. It was earth-shattering, deafening. It attracted all the surrounding magical beasts, as they couldn't help but start their escape mode. That's a dragon. Dragon. Second Elder Miao pointed at the red dragon in shock. Chapter 2963. Profound Energy. Created? Fourth Elder Miao's pupils constricted as his face was filled with shock or terror. She's already so strong that she can use the profound energy to form a material object to attack? The flying dragon which was circling in midair kept on flying. Boundless dark force surged wildly. What kind of monster is this lady? We have 2 freakishly powerful battle pets and a dragon. This isn't a real dragon. It's profound energy, it's profound energy. The secluded palace's disciples who were battling with Shiju, Qiyan and Yan Shaoyi were shocked by this scene. Thousands of people, under the attack of the 2 battle pets, had no way to resist at all. But now, after seeing the red dragon that Yiqing Luo released, all their arrogance was suppressed. When the Fox Saint La saw the giant dragon, she frowned slightly. She wasn't shocked. Just that she couldn't believe it. However, when the red dragon charged down with a tyrannical profound chi, Lin Fan's eyes widened. Fox Saint La had no choice but to believe that this was not a smokescreen. Her face instantly turned pale. The dragon head which was charging towards her was roaring and brandishing its claws, as though it was going to swallow her up completely. She was fast. But no matter how fast she was, she couldn't be faster than the dragon. In a moment of desperation, Fox Saint La's eyes flashed, dead corpse puppets. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Following Fox Saint La's command. Those dead corpse puppets which were originally surrounding the profound energy which Yiqing Luo created and attacking crazily all rushed towards Fox Saint La. Bam bam bam. The red dragon's power instantly landed on the undead corpse puppets. A few deafening sounds were heard. Pieces of badly mutilated flesh splattered in all directions. Those were the dead corpse puppets which were blasted into powder by the red dragon's power. These dead corpse puppets were all defective products. Many of them were still in the midst of cleaning up the corpse gas and rotting corpse water. This explosion. Instantly it was filled with a rotten stench. Fox Saint La was the closest. The moment when the dead corpse puppets exploded. Fox Saint La's entire body was covered with large pieces of minced meat and corpse water. There wasn't any sticky blood. But that corpse water was stained with the minced meat. And it was in the middle of her forehead. Fox Saint La's throat rolled, he was furious again. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Fox Saint Fa's entire body reeked of a disgusting stench and she was so disgusted that she was totally unable to tolerate it. The venom in her eyes towards Yiqing Luo was burning more and more intensely. Whereas Yiqing Luo, who was by the side, slowly retracted the profound energy which she had released. The gathering of the roars dissipated bit by bit. Yiqing Luo moved her palm. The devouring flame fan closed. The aura of the red dragon also dissipated. She gracefully stood amidst the flesh and blood on the ground. Even though both her sleeves had been destroyed, it still did not affect her otherworldly temperament. His monstrous aura caused others to submit. This move was executed. In addition, Yanjin Fei and Mei had died. In the end, Fox Saint La was also battered and exhausted. The arrogance of the Dark Nether Palace disciples had long been suppressed. Obviously, Yiqing Luo's side only had 2 war pets and a few young students. Gui Wu had yet to make a move. They already felt, there was no doubt that they would lose this battle. Fox Saint La pressed down on his heart, mobilizing the remaining profound chi in his profound jade heart. Her face was filled with blood stains and her body was filled with a rotten stench, which made the cold intent in her eyes deepened. Not resigned. She couldn't just admit defeat to that scoundrel. This broken body, the profound jade heart's quality was actually so low. She couldn't even use a third of her former strength. If it was her in the past. Chapter 2964. Jia Jia Jia. That cold voice once again rang in the Fox Saint Technique's ears. Fox Saint Technique seemed to have been ridiculed, and his scarlet eyes widened in anger and humiliation. What's so funny? It's just that this body is too broken. It's not my true strength. Even now, you still don't believe this seat's words? The gloomy voice laughed coldly, full of disdain. You're not that girl's opponent. Just one move. Fox Saint La had clearly suffered a great loss. But Fox Saint Law was still confident that he didn't lose to Yiqing Luo, but lost to his own body. Fox Saint Law indeed felt that way. Especially after the cold and gloomy voice said those words without any disguise. The fury in the depths of Fox Saint F's eyes grew even more exuberant. Who said that this palace lord is inferior to her? If not for this body, this palace master would have long captured that scoundrel alive. Tisk tsk tisk. That cold voice sneered again. Shut up. Shut up. Fox Saint Law had a sinister look on his face as he roared angrily. Meanwhile, Yiqing Luo's eyes stared intently at the Fox Saint technique, and in her mind was Old Man Song's vigilant voice. Lass. It was that evil aura again. The aura coming from Fox Saint Law's body is from the underworld palace. Coincidentally, he heard the angry roar of the Fox Saint technique. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed little by little. Since I've confirmed that the evil energy came from the Fox Saint technique, then I can only kill the Fox Saint technique first. Her words caused Old Man Song to panic. Little Luo, don't be silly. With your current strength, it's impossible for you to defeat the madman from the underworld palace. Their goal? I still can't tell. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips tightly as the expression on her face was extremely grave. Xian is still curing the goo. If I escape and they find Xian, what should I do? Old Man Song was momentarily speechless. The reason why the Palace of Gloomy Darkness would appear here. It was nothing more than taking advantage of Dmo Xian's absence. Which also meant that the people from the Palace of Darkness had at least 70% and above certainty that Dmo Xian would not be able to rush over to save them at this moment. If Yiqing Luo brought her brothers and ran away, the people of the Miao tribe were not important. But Dmo Xian, who was curing the goo in Miao tribe. Yiqing Luo indeed couldn't escape and couldn't escape. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers clenched tightly as her gaze turned biting cold. Since he couldn't escape, he had to face it head on. As long as he killed the Fox Saint technique before the evil energy leaked out, he might even be able to stop that madman from the underworld palace from appearing. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes and glanced at the azure dew ring that had replaced the profound phoenix ring on her fingertip. On the top of the ring, there were even wisps of frightening red light flowing around. It seemed that he still had to use the power of the divine artifact. Now her body was being suppressed by the heart tranquility bead. Even if I use the power of a divine tool, I still need you to control whether or not it will lead to a backlash from the profound jade heart. Just as he was thinking about this, Yiqing Luo suddenly raised her head as her eyes swiftly shot towards the direction of the Fox Saint technique. An incomparably powerful and tyrannical aura suddenly burst out. In an instant, it engulfed the entire Miao tribe's entrance. When Yiqing Luo's vision shifted onto Fox Saint technique at the same time, a burst of bright and resplendent light enveloped Fox Saint technique within it. The surging profound chi was like a tide as it surged with tyrannical waves, forcefully breaking apart the pressure which Yiqing Luo had laid out. Chapter 2965. Yiqing Luo's pupils suddenly expanded. What was going on? Why? Within Fox Saint Law's body, would such dense profound energy suddenly rise explosively? He had actually managed to tear her pressure apart. How was it possible for Fox Saint Law to explode such powerful profound energy in such a short period of time? Not good. Fox Saint Law's profound grade is continuing to explode. Old Man Song also sensed the change in Fox Saint Law's aura and immediately reminded her. Profound grade exploding. Serenine was already dead. What other methods did Secluded Palace have to make use of demonic chi to raise profound energy in a short period of time? Yiqing Luo was filled with doubts. And at this moment, Fox Saint Law's profound grade exploding was also filled with doubts. Fox Saint Law only felt that her profound jade heart was about to explode. The swelling feeling made her feel that her heart was about to explode in the next moment. Endless raging flames, desperately burning everything about her. Making her unable to endure this kind of pain, her voice was hoarse as she whimpered in pain. Don't you feel that because of this body that doesn't belong to you, you lost to that lass? This seat shall give you this chance, to let you wipe away your previous humiliation. A sinister voice rang eerily while Fox Saint Law was in pain. And that surging energy in her body, and the scorching feeling of the raging flames, made Fox Saint Law unable to say a single word. Ah! The last heart-wrenching scream came out from Fox Saint Law's mouth. That gush of dazzling light which wrapped around Fox Saint Law at this moment, exploded in all directions. Those bursts of light were like fine threads, densely shooting out. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned sharp as her feather fan waved. She looked sharply at Yan Xiaoyi and the rest. Be careful. Avoid these light rays. With Yiqing Luo's reminder. Although the few of them were in a sorry state, but they managed to avoid those densely packed light rays. But the surrounding secluded palace's disciples as well as the Miao tribesmen weren't so lucky. Fox St. Law's eyes were still shut tightly, her hands clenched into fists, her entire body tensed up, as though she was gathering all her energy. Numerous light rays shook off from her body. As it spread to the surroundings, it turned into streaks of light like sharp blades. Everywhere he passed, blood splattered and severed limbs flew in all directions. This bloody scene caused the Palace of Darkness and the Miao tribe to wail like ghosts and howl like wolves. And at this time, the Fox Saint technique that had been injected with limitless power had no time to care about the chaos it had created. Under the corrosion of the demonic aura, there was only one thought in his mind. That was, to kill Yiqing Luo. She wanted everyone who looked down on her to shut their mouths. She wanted to let everyone know that she, the Fox Saint Law, relied on her own strength to sit in this position. Bang bang bang. The stronger the will, the fiercer the profound energy on the Fox Saint technique's body attacked. A powerful pressure exploded in the surrounding air, creating huge vortexes. The disciples and clansmen of both sides suffered heavy casualties under this oppressive might. Such a turn of events. First Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao could not help but turn pale. The both of them had been paying close attention to Yiqing Luo. Just as Yiqing Luo was reminding his brother, he followed Yiqing Luo's words and dodged the light rays which shot over from the surroundings. They had managed to survive. But among the Miao tribesmen, there were at least hundreds of them who had died under those dense light rays. Before they had the chance to settle these injured tribesmen. Chapter 2966. Seeing more and more Miao tribesmen fleeing in all directions while wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves, Great Elder Miao's fists clenched tighter and tighter. Eldest brother, why don't we beg Miss Yi? As long as she nods her head, let the Overlord bring the Imperial Palace's disciples to appear and Miao tribe will be saved. Second Elder Miao suggested anxiously. Great Elder Miao's eyes flashed as though he was moved. Fourth Elder Miao, who was hiding by the side, revealed a contemptuous smile as he looked at Yiqing Luo and sneered, Second brother, have you gone senile? Do you think someone like Yiqing Luo will listen to our pleas? Earlier, how did Miao tribe treat her? It's already considered as her mercy that she didn't exterminate us personally. Fourth Elder Miao's words made Great Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao fall into silence. When Fourth Elder Miao saw this, he struck while the iron was hot. Also, if the Overlord is really in Miao tribe, he might really appear. Based on his character of valuing Yiqing Luo so much, he would have appeared the moment Miao tribe was surrounded by secluded palace. How could he not be seen until now? Great Elder Miao's face turned paler. Either the Overlord isn't in Miao tribe, or the Overlord himself can't make it in time. Fourth Elder Miao continued to analyze. Great Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao exchanged glances as they were drenched in cold sweat. Actually, they had a thought in their hearts. Yiqing Luo was here. DMO Xian would definitely appear. But after hearing Fourth Elder Miao's analysis, they then realized the seriousness of the matter. If the Overlord didn't make it in time, just based on Yiqing Luo and those few kids who hadn't even grown out their hair, they were absolutely not Secluded Palace's match. Even if there was a Mirage Beast Grade Leopard, adding on to the Vermilion Bird which looked like one of the 4 sacred beasts. But it was still impossible to go against the entire Secluded Palace. Look, the Second Palace Lord had shown his prowess. They didn't even have a chance to breathe. Seeing the Miao tribe's casualties increasing, Great Elder Miao's heart tightened even more. Eldest brother, second brother, I have a suggestion. Fourth Elder Miao saw that their emotions were already under his control, so he took the opportunity to speak out. The two of them immediately looked at Fourth Elder Miao with hopeful eyes. Fourth Elder Miao lowered his voice and said helplessly, Now we can only rely on the Palace of Darkness to protect the Miao tribe. Join. Great Elder Miao was startled. If the Miao tribe surrendered to the Palace of Darkness, the Miao tribe would no longer be an independent power. It was a subsidiary of the Palace of Darkness. Elders like them would also become slaves of the Dark Nether Palace. How could Great Elder Miao be willing to be under someone else? This is the only way to protect the Miao tribe. Otherwise, if the people from Secluded Darkness Palace annihilate our Miao tribe, we won't even be able to live. Fourth Elder Miao could see First Elder Miao's hesitation. But, joining the Palace of Gloomy Darkness requires the approval of the Saintess. Although Second Elder Miao was a little tempted, this was still a big deal. Saintess. Fourth Elder Miao sneered. Ever since Miao Yi accepted the Gu King's inheritance, she has disappeared. Now that the Miao tribe is in such great trouble, she still hasn't appeared. What's the use of having a saintess like her? Speaking of Miao Yi, then he thought of what Miao Yi had done. Chapter 2967. Under Fourth Elder Miao's deliberate instigation. First Elder Miao and Second Elder Miao's initial hesitation had already nodded their heads and decided, in order to protect the Miao clan, we will rely on the secluded palace. Yiqing Luo didn't have the mood to pay attention to this episode. Her brows were tightly knitted as her battle intent was gradually ignited in the air under the shapeless fluctuation. By the time Fox St. Law stabilized her own strength, it was already half an incense's time later. Yiqing Luo? The hoarse voice no longer had the previous coquettish tone. Fox St. Law growled Yiqing Luo's name, extremely ear-piercing and sharp. That pair of seductive beautiful eyes were burning with a terrifying red glow, as though blood had spread out, covering the entire white of her eyes. That delicate face also showed a bit of twisted malevolence. She gave off an extremely vicious and crazy vibe. Fox St. Law didn't have any hesitation or nonsense. After howling out Yiqing Luo's name, it turned into a black ray, directly attacking towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Thick profound energy collided against Yiqing Luo's surrounding profound energy shield. Not only the air, even the ground, because of Fox St. Law's attack, started to shake continuously. Yiqing Luo's slender brows were tightly knitted, as she hurriedly tried to evade. But when that burst of profound energy attacked, Yiqing Luo felt as though she was being pressed down fiercely by an invisible mountain. Her legs didn't even have the energy to move. This made Yiqing Luo's alarm bells rang loudly. Fox St. Law's attack indeed made her feel pressured. But she had never thought that Fox St. Law's current profound energy was actually powerful to such a stage. It had already far exceeded her expectations. What on earth was going on? Could it be a madman from Hell Palace? Yiqing Luo only had this guess in her heart. Old Man Song replied uncertainly, I only sensed a trace of aura, and it disappeared very quickly. Now from Fox St. Law I don't feel any strange aura. Yiqing Luo's expression became increasingly grave. She couldn't hide. Then she could only meet him head-on. She clenched her teeth, using all her strength to resist that heavy pressure, as she speedily rotated the glower flame fan in her hands. Red light shot out, enveloping her within. Bang! The Fox Saint Technique's attack fiercely landed on the red light. The red light trembled and suddenly dispersed. Whereas Yiqing Luo's 2 feet, which were standing on the original spot, actually sank downwards as it sunk a little. Are you very surprised? Fox St. Law looked at Yiqing Luo's expression as he laughed complacently. To be able to see Yiqing Luo suffering a setback, without any ability to retaliate at all. Fox Saint Technique didn't care about the reason for such a change in her body. She only knew. She had this power. Chapter 2968. Yiqing Luo, you can't escape, you can't escape. Fox St. Law's almost insane voice was filled with disgust and hatred. She was howling as she released a thick and overbearing profound energy, turning into a black ray as she pressed forward. That powerful, thick and frightening power. It made Yiqing Luo's heart filled with waves of shock. Yiqing Luo's pupils constricted as her 5 fingers moved. The azure dew ring on her fingertips seemed to be covered with a layer of blood-colored light at this instance. Swoosh, a gust of air current cut through the air. Endless red light overflowed from the azure dew ring as it speedily enveloped Yiqing Luo entirely. At the same time, Fox St. Law's attack had already landed. Bam! An earth-shattering overbearing attack headed straight for Yiqing Luo's vital points. Qing Luo. Qing Luo. When Yan Xiaoyi and the others saw this scene, they were so shocked that they cried out Yiqing Luo's name. Even Shiju and Qi Yan at this instance dashed towards Yiqing Luo. But everything was too late. That overbearing and violent profound energy seemed as though it could destroy the heavens and earth as it all exploded on Yiqing Luo. The ground was like a spider web as it densely spread out. Rumble, the nearby mountain peaks of the Miao tribe all collapsed. The surroundings were filled with the wails of the Miao tribe. and the secluded palace's disciples' terrified cries. Die. Go and die. Go and die. No one can make me a joke. No one can be more powerful than me. All the scoundrels who have humiliated this palace master must die. But, just as Fox St. Law revealed a joyous expression, suddenly, a burst of sharp energy shot out from that overbearing profound energy. At this moment, the bewitching red glow that enveloped the surroundings was like a huge red dragon with its mouth wide open and raging flames lingering around it. That bloody mouth was constantly swallowing the attacks of the Fox Saint technique. Die. Fox St. Law, aren't you a little too confident? The young lady's sweet voice was filled with ridicule and ridicule. Under that red dragon's encirclement, a red figure flew out from the tyrannical dark force. The girl's slender figure and skirt fluttered in the wind like a blooming rose. Her silky black hair danced in the wind, further complementing her beautiful face, which was peerless in this world. The girl's right hand was covered by a layer of red light. At the tip of his fingers was a feather fan that emitted a red glow. Everyone was stunned by this scene. All of them widened their eyes in disbelief as they stared at the girl floating in the air. It was unimaginable. A 15-year-old girl. How did he manage to survive the powerful attacks of the second palace master of the Netherworld Palace? Moreover, he was able to survive. Furthermore, he was completely unscathed, especially when he saw the girl standing in midair. Her long and narrow eyes stared coldly ahead. That unparalleled aura that stood above all others caused others to feel as if they were blaspheming her by just looking at her. This was Yi Qingluo's ability? This was the true strength of the legendary heroine of the West Wave continent? Damn it. Fox St. Law's exquisite little face was filled with a twisted anger. She couldn't believe it. She had gathered all her energy and exploded a fatal blow, but it was blocked by Yi Qingluo. She actually blocked it? That obviously looked like a useless young lady. Chapter 2969. Splash. Don't even think of escaping. Fox St. Dharma's furious eyes were filled with rage, without a single bit of seductive charm. She let out a loud roar. The profound energy surrounding her swelled up once again, like a volcano eruption as it surged upwards. That powerful profound energy. The suppressed air seemed to have been condensed. The surrounding disciples who were trying to escape were pushed, and those who got nearer were all torn into pieces by this powerful force. Simply, it didn't differentiate between friend and foe. The entire entrance of the Miao tribe was a scene of carnage. Blood and flesh splattered, and the blood stench, along with the wind, could be transmitted for hundreds of miles. The Miao tribesmen, one by one, escaped into the Miao tribe. There were some Miao tribesmen who wanted to seek protection from the elders. But they discovered they totally couldn't find the existence of those few elders. Instantly, the Miao tribesmen panicked. One by one, the tribesmen who had never experienced such a big scene were so scared that their bodies turned soft as they knelt on the ground. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. That tyrannical profound energy was still cutting through the air, crashing over. The crowd obviously felt that breathing was getting harder and harder. The air was condensed by the profound energy, becoming thinner and thinner. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Gui Wu, who had been watching by the side, suddenly congealed his eyes on Fox St. Dharma. Gui Wu's rare words attracted the attention of the few beside him. Zhou Mo tightly hugged Kitty Li, who was struggling to pounce towards Yi Qingluo, as he turned his head, looking at Gui Wu with a grave expression. Ah Wu, what do you mean by this? That second palace lord's aura is not right. Gui Wu frowned slightly as his voice was unprecedentedly solemn. That's not her aura, instead. It seems like someone intentionally transferring their own energy into her body. Gui Wu's fanaticism towards martial arts made him understand anything related to profound energy to some extent. The person hiding in the dark, I didn't sense any. The last sentence, Gui Wu's tone, was a little solemn. Zomo's expression changed. Even Gui Wu couldn't sense the aura. From this, it could be seen just how powerful the person secretly transferring power to the second palace master was. Second palace lord's hatred towards Qingluo is so deep, as though there's a blood feud between them. She didn't want to capture Qingluo alive, but to kill her. Yan Xiaoyi stomped her feet anxiously. If not for Qiao Jin forcefully pulling her back, she would have already carried her black scythe blade and charged forward. This second palace master is just a chess piece. Gui Wu furrowed his eyebrows as his gaze turned deep and serene. You guys stay by the side and watch. I'll look around for traces of the person hiding in the dark. We can only watch from the side. Peach clenched her fists and stared at Yi Qing Luo's direction, biting her lower lip. You don't have to worry about that last Qing Luo. To her, this is the best training. Gui Wu said indifferently as his figure disappeared into thin air, disappearing without a trace. The best training? Training? In the eyes of the ghost marshal. It was so powerful that it could destroy heaven and earth. Just Yi Qing Luo's training? Everyone's hearts which were at their throats, unknowingly, slowly calmed down at this moment. Unknowingly they believed in Gui Wu's words. Whereas at this moment, the red-robed young lady who was standing in mid-air, slowly raised her hand which was holding the glower flame fan. Chapter 2970. Towards that raging, soaring profound energy and emitting oppressive aura. It totally didn't affect the young lady's transformation. The young lady's slender fingers, under the contrast of the red glow, looked extremely fair and eye-catching. Her fingers twitched, just like a remnant shadow. The glower fan opened up. 2 rays of red glow were released from both her hands, intertwining continuously. The young lady's hand which was holding the glower fan had not stopped for even a second. The remnant shadow floated as though playing a beautiful tune on the glower fan. The hurricane wantonly attacked. It swept up the ground full of flesh and broken limbs, sand and gravel. Kill? Fox Saint F's palm flipped, the 9-segment whip wrapped around her hand, turning into a sharp blade, striking towards Yi Qing Luo. The torrential profound energy covered the sky and earth, directly pressed down on Yi Qing Luo. Qing Luo. Even though she believed Ghost Marshal's words. When she saw this scene, Yan Xiaoyi and the others couldn't help but had a change of expression. However, in the instant that the Fox Saint technique's long whip, which was like an ice-cold viper, flew over, Yi Qing Luo also opened her eyes abruptly. Fox Saint Fa's speed was fast. Yi Qing Luo was even faster. Under the situation where the naked eye couldn't see, the glower fan in Yi Qing Luo's hands had already forced the 9-segment whip's energy back. The red glow intertwined. The glower fan was like an excited fire elf, as it flew around in the surrounding air. Fox Saint Fa only felt a surge of vast and majestic profound energy, as it followed along her 9-segment whip and pressed down. She was shocked by this sudden burst of energy as her entire body tensed up. The long whip left her hand. Her body, followed closely, flew backwards. Just barely before she stabilized her footsteps. Under both of their feet, there was already a huge deep pit. The surrounding mountains were still collapsing continuously. The huge rocks rolled, extremely terrifying. At this moment, even the Miao tribesmen, as well as secluded palace's disciples, couldn't help but stop in their tracks. He raised his head high and looked at the sky. This was a shocking and intense battle. This was the battle between the top experts? Fox Saint Fa felt helpless on her chest. An oppressive feeling that she couldn't calm down caused her to feel stifled and painful even when she breathed. He only felt that the energy accumulated in the profound heart jade seemed like it would explode at any time. Her scarlet-red eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. He was filled with anger. Bitch. You used a divine artifact to cheat. Fox St. Law's hoarse voice roared with unwillingness. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her long and narrow eyes. Fox Saint technique, your words are rather funny. Her pink lips curled up into a radiant smile, forming a stark contrast with the Fox Saint's pale face. We aren't competing or anything, so how can I be considered cheating? Soon after, Yi Qing Luo's smile became even more enchanting. Moreover, I'm using the power of the god armament. Anyway, the god armament is mine. Terrifying Fox Saint technique. What about you? Her eyes narrowed as she smiled, and a circle of sly red light appeared in her eyes. Fox Saint Fa's body stiffened. You? What nonsense are you spouting? Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, you know best in your heart, Fox Saint Law. Yi Qing Luo closed the glower flame fan, propped her chin and narrowed her eyes as she fixed her gaze on Fox Saint Law. Fox Saint Law's face turned slightly pale as though she couldn't understand. How did Yi Qing Luo see through the reason for the change in her power? Chapter 2971. Fox Saint Law's hand which was pressing on her heart suddenly paused. Her breathing also became heavier. A pair of bewitching scarlet eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. What Yi Qing Luo said was indeed right. The profound energy on her body was indeed getting weaker and weaker under the repeated attacks. It was as though it would dissipate at any moment. That cold voice transmitted a powerful energy to her. After the battle with Yiqing, this body of hers was unable to withstand that powerful energy. The more it consumed, the more it consumed. The faster her body decayed, the faster her body decayed. If she continued to fight with Yiqing like this body of hers would definitely not be able to withstand this energy. Most likely, the consequences would not only be a backlash. There was also a possibility that her profound heart jade would explode from that cold energy, causing her heart to burst and die. Until now. Fox Saint Law then realized that because of her anger towards Yiqing, it had led her to such a state. At this moment, if she advanced, there was a possibility that the new life which she had just obtained would disappear once again. If she retreated, wouldn't it be admitting in front of everyone that she was no match for Yiqing? Fox Saint Law gritted her teeth as her eyes were filled with hatred. Yiqing, that slut, actually had a divine relic in her hands. She actually used the power of the divine relic to go against her. Obviously this Yiqing was just an ant which could be easily pinched to death. Why could she withstand the power of the divine relic? Why was it that Yiqing seemed as though she was not affected at all, and could freely control the power of the divine relic? Fox Saint Law, you have no way out now. How could Yiqing not see the hatred in Fox Saint Law's eyes? She laughed softly as her brows were filled with ridicule and disdain. I don't need to waste any energy to deal with you anyway. From the moment you accepted that energy, you must die. Fox Saint Law's pupils suddenly expanded. I will not die. I absolutely will not die. Yiqing smiled elegantly. Do you really think I don't know that there's a spy from your secluded palace in the Miao tribe? You brought people from secluded palace and a batch of defective goods to encircle the Miao tribe. What's your purpose? Do you think I can't tell? Fox Saint Law's face turned pale. Hearing Yiqing confident words, it was as if he had already known their intentions. Now he was just inviting the enemy into the jar, catching a turtle in the jar. Whereas Fox Saint Technique's reaction had exactly verified Yiqing guess. People from the Dark Abyss Palace. Sure enough, they knew that Dmo Xian would not be able to appear at this time. He had rushed over specially. Their first target was indeed Dmo Xian. This would explain why the Palace of Gloomy Shadows would send a madman from the Hell Palace to assist them. This knowledge caused her heart to thump fiercely. Fox Saint Technique, originally, it wasn't easy for you to revive and I didn't want to kill you, but now, you must die. Yiqing eyes suddenly turned extremely cold. His voice was also as cold as ice. It concerned Dmo Xian. She couldn't stay calm anymore. She raised her glowing flame fan and drew a line of flames in the air. That flame scuttled around Yiqing palm. Then, with a loud rumble, it bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it charged right at the face of the Fox Saint Technique. If you try to escape, I'll kill you before you escape. You want to continue fighting with me? Then I'll wait for you to self-explode and die. In any case, you must die. Yiqing voice was like a sharp blade. Together with that scuttling flame, it covered the sky and covered the earth as it attacked Fox Saint Technique. Start out your tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.